It's a tragic incident that is very unusual because for a Boeing 787 like this, which was 11 years old, to be hitting the ground within a minute of taking off is very unusual indeed, unless there was some sort of external force of some kind. Now, normally that might be weather. It might be some sort of missile of some kind hitting the aircraft. But in this particular case, it doesn't seem to be that. And investigators, I think, will be looking at whether there was some sort of pilot error on board within the first 600 feet or so of that plane taking off, or a software malfunction.
Let's turn to the utterly devastating scenes coming out of India, where a plane carrying 242 people crashed less than a minute after taking off. The Times are now reporting that at least one British national has survived the crash. This is India's junior civil aviation minister, Muralidhar Mohol, who said all the efforts currently are focused on rescue.
The priority that we have, that people who are there and people who are injured, we need to get them out. We have to really help them in the emergency. We have heard there's 105 casualties. We have not given a statement about it. The work is there, and the priority, the first of all, the priority is there that we have to save as many people as possible, and we have to give them the emergency service. There is a final list that is coming. The boarding passes has names, but let's see what happens.
And of course, of those casualties, we don't know at this point if they were passengers on the plane or people on the ground when the plane crashed. We've also been hearing in the last hour from the CEO of Air India. This is Campbell Wilson.
First and most importantly, I would like to express our deep sorrow about this event. This is a difficult day for all of us at Air India, and our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, their families and loved ones. I know that there are many questions, and at this stage, I will not be able to answer all of them. Anything we report must be accurate and not speculative. We owe that to everyone involved.
We're trying to make contact with the journalist on the ground at Ahmedabad in India. So as soon as we do that, we will reconnect. But for now, Paul Charles is a former Virgin Atlantic and Eurostar Director of Communications who has worked in the past couple of years with Air India, who joins us now. Paul, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
What is your sort of initial reaction as to what's gone so horrifically wrong here?
Well, it's a tragic incident that is very unusual because for a Boeing 787 like this, which was 11 years old, to be hitting the ground within a minute of taking off is very unusual indeed, unless there was some sort of external force of some kind. Now, normally that might be weather. It might be some sort of missile of some kind hitting the aircraft. But in this particular case, it doesn't seem to be that. And investigators, I think, will be looking at whether there was some sort of pilot error on board within the first 600 feet or so of that plane taking off, or a software malfunction. And as we know, Boeing have had a number of issues recently with several of their aircraft types around software. So that's why the investigators will want to understand this very urgently.
Because the plane came down so quickly. I mean, talk us through the timeline. It was less than a minute after taking off that it had then crashed.
That's right. The aircraft took off just after around 1 o'clock. It took off a few minutes later than scheduled and was due to arrive in Gatwick some 9 hours later. But within literally 30 to 40 seconds of taking off, that aircraft came down over a residential area. And it's unusual. There are obviously incidents that do occur within several minutes of takeoff, but when the visibility is good and the weather is apparently good, as it was at the time, then it is more unusual for an aircraft that is a modern plane that has a good track record and good safety record in its relatively short history to come down in this way. So there are so many Boeing 787s in operation as we speak and all around the world that the investigators will need to understand urgently whether it was something to do with the software on board that aircraft, or indeed the engines or the hardware in some form, as well as potentially pilot error.
What would you expect happens to those other Boeing 787s right now?
Well, they will continue flying until Boeing, as the lead manufacturer, alongside investigators, decide whether they have any evidence to suggest that it was something to do with the aircraft or not. And that's why they'll be urgently going to the scene. I have to say, Campbell Wilson, the CEO of Air India, who I've worked with, is one of the best CEOs in the industry. So in terms of Air India's response so far, it has been swift. It has been impressive in terms of offering compensation for those affected, the families affected, as well as offering relief flights and also to help the medical facility that was affected, the doctor's facility the plane crashed into. So if there's anyone you want to deal with this situation quickly and accurately, it is somebody like Campbell Wilson, who is one of the best CEOs in the sector.
Paul Charles, thank you. Former Virgin Atlantic and Eurostar Director of Communications, who has worked, as we've just been hearing, closely with Air India just in the last couple of years or so. Well, we can go now to Ahmedabad in India to speak to Priya Manya, a journalist who is there. Priya, thank you very much for speaking to us. Just tell us what you know in terms of the very latest of that recovery operation.
Hi, good evening. I'm reporting live from Ahmedabad, where the aftermath of today's Air India crash has drawn a really heavy and emotional response from both the public as well as the authorities on the ground. The crash occurred earlier today as the aircraft attempted to land at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. As of now, in the current situation, rescue operations, they're still underway. We have emergency responders here since I'm on the site. Police officials and NDRF teams are also present at the scene right now as I speak. I have spoken with a few locals nearby who described that they heard a loud impact followed by a smoke rising from the site. Of course, there's a visible accord throughout the area, and a lot of families have been affected. Lately, the news have been that, majority of nobody has actually survived. But it is yet to be confirmed since obviously we haven't really identified many of the dead bodies yet.
And what we're hearing actually is some local media suggesting, and local police saying, that a British national may be the, at this point, only survivor of the crash. When we get more detail on that, we'll bring it to you here. Can you just explain what the scene is like? Because obviously this is awful, but debris everywhere. The back part of the plane is sort of crashed and still intact in this building.
Yes. Of course, as we speak, there's a possible chance that he's the only one surviving at the moment. Right now, the situation remains really tense. The airport vicinity is being secured further. The press movement is being managed closely. And there's a lot of people here outside the hospital, since that's what I'm seeing over here. A lot of water bottles has been distributed around. And I can see a lot of families being affected, and they are really in a really worse condition because obviously they did not expect this. It's really a black day for the city today.
Absolutely.
We just happened to record an Indian politician from the BJP party called Bharat Boghara. He's actually also sending his condolences to all the families being affected. He just recently came. We had Amit Shah also come in, and then he just also witnessed the entire incident as well. It's really heartbreaking to see how everybody over here is in a massive crowd, just suffering. A lot of people are yet to know. They identify their own loved ones as well. A lot of people are just in the aftermath because they did realize that, their loved ones are dead or have passed away. And it's just really sad. We also, obviously, you must have known by now that our former CM, Vijay Rupani, he also sadly, unfortunately, passed away in this incident as well earlier today. His wife happened to be in London just 2 days ago. So now she has boarded the flight and probably she's to arrive in Mumbai tomorrow morning as well.
A little later, we'll be hearing about what's happening at Gatwick Airport. Of course, that's where the plane was due to arrive, actually in the next couple of hours. And they've set up a station there for relatives, family, friends to get help, advice, support, or then get flights over to where you are now. We are in very much the rescue and recovery start of this. But actually, what we're hearing, Priya, is the investigations have started already. What can you tell us about that?
Well, investigation is still underway and they're yet to confirm every detail. I think we will only know furthermore by tomorrow at least, because there's a lot of police, there's a lot of people around, and approximately I'm just covering all the footage that I possibly can. And at the same time, I'm trying to interview people at the moment as well. But about the investigation, it's still under the wrap. and they're yet to give us more information.
Yeah, the
by
UK are
tomorrow.
going to send a delegation over to try and help and assist with that. We've been hearing from the UK Foreign Secretary on it as well. The people that you've been speaking to, Preya, I mean, right now there must be a sort of just a palpable state of shock.
They are. They're really in massive shock. I can only see people being heartbroken and then crying endlessly, because obviously it was out of nowhere that they expected today for this to happen, because it was only 2 minutes after the flight took off, it crashed into BJP's medical college quarters, where there were medical students who apparently have also been, some of them says that it is already passed away, but obviously it's a very devastating situation as we speak. And not many people are, again, ready to, talk about it yet, given their condition, of course.
I'm sure. What have we heard from Air India?
I'm still under the wrap with them because obviously the line is super busy with every other media press communicating with them at the moment.
As and when we get more details, we'll bring them to you here. Preya, thank you. In the midst of such a chaotic incident, thank you for making the time to speak to us. Preya Manyar speaking live from the scene, the city, Ahmedabad in India. When we get more updates, we'll bring them to you. As Preya just told us, actually, Gujarat's former chief minister has been killed in the plane crash. India's civil aviation minister told reporters that earlier today. That's Vijay Rupani. He was a member, actually, of the governing BJP party. So we're going to find out a bit later about exactly that route. Lots of families taking that pathway. Obviously, we have 53 British nationals, 1 Canadian, 7 people from Pakistan, and the rest Indian nationals. And it's a route that many families would have been taking, let's say for weekend weddings. We'll find out more of the details a little bit later and bring them to you here. But if you've just joined us or been following the news today, that was that Air India plane crash that crashed in a residential area. And right now, as we're hearing about the recovery, 104 bodies recovered. We are not clear if those people were passengers or if they were people who were on the ground when the plane hit. We'll keep you up to date here.